One of the things I've noticed with myself personally is that of a lot of making money has been like more mental and like emotional. And I don't know why like I can't like seem to get past like that. I guess like it feels like an internal resistance that I'm not like aware of is there, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I was wondering
Yeah,
like
dude.
how do
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, so how do you overcome that like to get yourself accustomed to making more?
So my question would be very, very first, like, who are you comparing yourself to, and what are you shooting for? Because what's interesting is your reference group is a big deal. Like, and a lot of us will choose a reference group that are it's too far away from where we're currently at, like where mentally we can currently see ourselves at. And so that's why there's this resistance. It's like I have this reference point up here, which is beautiful. We need those things in the horizon. But what people fail to do is they'll choose a reference point in the horizon far away, but they fail to fill in the gaps between. So as we
Mhm.
fill in the gaps between, now we can start being more feasible to us here. So that'd be my first question, dude. Who you're comparing yourself to? Who would you say your mentors, your reference group is, and how far away are they in comparison to where you're at?
Very far apart. Me personally, I only talk to millionaires. I talk to people like yourself, or people or like they own tons of real estate or they're in the business world. They're already millionaires, kind of way off. So I don't hang around anyone kind of in those in between ranges, like making of their 100 grand, 200 grand. Everyone that I talk to is kind of like, I guess someone like yourself, just way out there,
Mm-hmm.
at least for my mind. And for me, like I'll honestly say it, like I'm accustomed to making around like 30 something grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, and then also too, like the people I do look at are like, driving the Ferrari that I want to own, or like people like that. I don't really talk to anyone else, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think that this? And you think that you're interviewing me, bro? I'm interviewing you, man. Where do you think this internal resistance comes from, then? Like, when you say this internal resistance, what do you mean by that?
Um, I'll give a few examples. Um, at one point I got like $2,000, like, one in one moment, like in one day. And
Mm-hmm.
then so naturally, I didn't feel comfortable holding on to it for very long. So I did invest it like with my mentor because I felt like if I kept it any longer, I would have probably spent it on something stupid personally. Or and even to like to start this mastermind, I initially started it as a paid group and I like did 3 sales and I got like $1,000 in one like sale. And so I just felt kind of like it felt weird like making money. Like I made more money like with 3 sales of this group than I make in a paycheck at work. And so it felt like, and I did it in like less than 2 hours. So it felt like
You
very
didn't do it in less than 2 hours, though. That's where you fell
oh
yourself.
yeah, yeah.
You didn't do it in less than 2 hours. That might have came in 2 hours, but what work? This is where the resistance comes from, bro. What work did you need to get to in order to even have the connections to be able to even create a group like that? Let's think back to that and
Mhm.
have people that would trust you with money to invest, like to be in a mentorship, like to be in a mastermind. What steps did you take? I want you to identify them. What did you do?
Um well, one idea was recommended to me to create the group, and then I thought about all the people I have in my world already like that. So like like you, even our relationship, like me
Mm-hmm.
having your number and stuff, like I have other millionaires in my phone as well, like their personal phone numbers. Because I'm just big on like I try to give. I don't know if you remember what I gave you at peak, or not. But like I try to be a giver more than anything with people like above me. I don't try to ask too much.
Yeah.
And also I'm just like really caring. I really genuinely want to like help other people, even with like doing this kind of content is like all in mind with like serving other people. Um
Hmm.
so, a lot of people have like a lot of people tell me they trust me. I mean, I understand why, but sometimes I don't believe that I have um like sometimes I forget that I'm just the action taker and I have like the capability to do great things. Like because I've done this mastermind. I've for the last 6 months prior to this call, I've had a millionaire talk to me every single month. Like same thing,
Hmm.
same format. Um and then so just kind of see it take a little fruition is kind of surprised myself a little bit because I didn't think I like one I would pull it off. Because one of my mentors recommended the idea to me, but I didn't
Hmm.
think I would actually be able to pull it off until once I did. I was like, whoa, I have this for like another few months. And then next month, I talk with Vinny Chopra, who's a
Hmm.
billionaire and
Yeah.
pretty big in the space. So
Yeah. Smiley.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
but yeah, no, I
So
uh-huh.
so that's your problem, man. It's very rare that we ever attain, achieve, and then keep anything that we don't feel worthy of, right? But you just haven't identified the steps. You identified the steps of creating. You didn't identify the steps to me right here of all the shit that you did before you even got in a position of creating it. Like, bro, you just one step that I know you did is you came to my 3-day training. You spent money to be in that. You spent more money to be in a mentorship. Then you attended those events. You participated on the Facebook page. I'm not here just because you asked me to be here. I'm here because, bro, I've seen your face all over the place and I know the value you provide and who you are. That's why I'm here. So you've done the things that you needed to do to put yourself in a position to have my phone number. There's 60, 50, 40, 70-year-olds who have not even remotely come close to taking the steps that you've taken. That's why they don't have my number. That's why they don't have these people's numbers. You've taken it, right? So like if you identify those things and now you're going into it was like, man, I put myself in this position to be able to bring these people to a mastermind, to be able to connect with people like Tyler, people like Vinny, people like these other people that you've had. There'd be, I feel bad for them if they don't pay me their money to be in this. Like, now my question is, do you still charge for it now?
No, I
That's why
stopped.
you have nobody on the call. It's because nobody has skin in the game. So you think that people paying you is just a benefit to you and it's not to them. No, bro. People pay me for our mentorship program because it's a benefit to them. Do I make money from it? Yep, as I should, because it's hard ass work. It's like, but dude, it's a benefit to them because they show up. They have to show up because they put money into it. Now, some people even put the money into it and they still don't show up, right? I mean, it makes me feel like I need to charge more so they can actually take it serious, right?
Yep.
But it's like, bro, you've done the things that you need to do to put yourself in that position. You just haven't taken the time to recognize it. You
Mhm.
just got to recognize it because then you'll start feeling worthy of it. It's one of the biggest things that I did. Like we talk about your journey to 6 feet, my first 6 figures. Well, I'll
Mhm.
tell you, my journey to my first 6 figures is I put in the freaking work, dude. Like I identified a path of well, really what I did is like I identified a potential path to get there, but I only did that by identifying people that really were living the life that like a better life than I was living, right? And one of them was my he would be considered like my step cousin-in-law or something, some random connection. But I knew he traveled, and I love travel. I knew he made pretty decent money because he had pretty nice things. Nothing crazy, not Ferraris and shit. He had nice things, right? Like he had a boat, he had 4-wheelers. Like where I grew up, like those are the things that I wanted. And so I started to ask questions of like, what did they do? How did they get into that? And then I became obsessed with obtaining it, dude. But the biggest piece of the journey that I didn't realize that I was doing along the journey was just, dude, I recognized the steps that I was taking. I saw myself like I would go, for example, the first job that I landed that eventually got me to 6 figures was a sales job.
Mhm.
And that sell and I'll tell you that I believe the biggest skills that anybody could learn if you're like top 3 like business type life skills. One of those is sales, man, like sales. And that's what this dude did. And so I was working a job that anybody in my family was like, that's an amazing job, dude. I was making probably, I don't know. Well, dude, probably close to 30, 40,000. Like that's what they're like, oh, that's awesome. You're 21, like great job, you know? Kim McCall, what's up?
Hey, Kim.
Hey. They're like, great job, you know? But dude, I knew that that's where I was and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And so, dude, I started to just take the steps to get there. I backdoored my way. And I talked to my step cousin-in-law. I was like, hey, how do I get an interview there? And he's like, you really you can't, they're really not hiring. Well, really what I then found out was that you had to be referred by somebody to even get an interview. You had to be referred by somebody. And he was referring somebody else. He didn't want me to leapfrog them. I just called the motherfuckers and was like, hey, Mike Reese is the guy's name. It's my step cousin-in-law. Hey man, Mike Reese, referred me to y'all, said that he thinks I'd be a great fit, would love to schedule an interview. And that's how I got an interview. I backdoored it, dude. I guess what? Both of us got hired, both people. See, he had a scarcity mentality, maybe only one, and he didn't want to ruin that other person's chances. I was just worried about my chances. So, dude, I'm like, I took that step to make that phone call, to put myself in that position, to interview, to get that. And I prepped like a month for that interview to be able to get the job. Then that scaled, that grew. I continued to just like ask a bunch of freaking questions to the top people, because that role that I was hired for wasn't the role it's not the role I want. It definitely wasn't a 6-figure role. Shit, I was barely making more than I was making before, but it had the potential to be that. And so like, I just kept asking questions. And dude, the result after a while, I made my first 105. I had my first 105,000, year. Just barely freaking cracked the 6-figure. My first one ever. I was fucking geeked. Dude, Kim, you look great today, man. Beautiful as always. And I saw your post, like that you're in the office on a Saturday. And I was like, man, the only 2 people that I know that are in the office on a Saturday are me, 3. Me, Thurban, Kim, man. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Definitely wanted to, I was like, I got to get some people inspired. Let's share. So yes, gentlemen, I'm super excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah,
I'm super excited to have you here. Love it. So this turned into me interviewing Thurban for a little bit there.
Good.
I was asking him why that, I was like, yeah. It's because he doesn't recognize and acknowledge the steps that he's taken, man. That's why you got that internal battle, bro. That's why you got it.
And one other thing I noticed, you talked about during our 3-day, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said you had a marketing company, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, web design, web hosting company. Yep.
Okay.
So here's the journey. Okay. So I do all the things that I just told you about. Then from there, had my first 105,000 year, which was, I don't know, I can't even remember what year it was, whatever year it was. And then I get married. 3 months after I get married, I get fired from that job. I get fired. And I was like, holy shit. I just had my first 6-figure year the year before. I feel like I'm on my way get fired. So that sucked, dude. That sucked, But I'll tell you, it was a huge eye opener for me, because it was actually the 3rd time I had been fired from that company. The 3rd time, swear to God, the 3rd time. So I was like, dude, I'm like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Literally, I was like, man, I'm sick. This is crazy. I'm going a different route. So I then went to a web design, web hosting company. And this the other one. The other one was also a web design, web hosting company. And I was learning and building it. But I mean, I was making some money, but it's nothing that was going to make me quit my job. It was some extra money to go. Yeah, just extra money, nothing crazy, but it was good. Then I went and I started with this other company to learn a different side of the web marketing, web hosting type business. And this ultimately led me to my first 200,000 in a year. And I didn't start that way, not even close. But what I did, dude, is I call it going the extra mile, right? Like I went the extra mile. I did more than I was paid to do. That's what I did. I spent countless hours like creating value. Like, dude, finding a problem that they would have in their systems and what they were doing. And I would like, dude, I remember like Brits at school. And so I'm just like, dude, I'm just grinding. Like, dude, I would stay up late, dude. And just creating things that I think would help the company. That's what I would do. And once again, just got paid. I did more than I was paid to do. And I eventually got paid more because of what I did. And that was great. Then I learned how to lead, man. And then I learned how to lead. And I believe like that role there was where I learned how to lead. And leadership is also one of I talk about the three biggest skills in business. And one is sales. The other one is leadership. The other one is just how to scale and grow a business, right? But like sales and leadership. And so I learned how to lead, man, and have uncomfortable conversations and have just like set this standard of excellence. But what happened, dude, my result, I made 200,000. I had my first 200,000 a year. And the next year they went out of business. I swear to God, next year they went out of business. And so now I'm like, fucking, hey, dude. So like, I am like trying to just like figure shit out. So I doubled down on the web business. Now I'm like, I double down on the web business. Like I start building this thing. I start taking, and I got a huge client from that. And it was a client that was pumping me leads. So instead of me having to go out and find my own leads, which is what I had been doing, I landed a big client who had a freaking massive amount of lead flow. And then they would send their leads to me because this is the service I did for them. And dude, that thing took off. Like I started making great money with that. It was awesome. I gained some security because it was like, dude, this is my business. This is what I'm doing. This is awesome. And I had also I had done some single family flips at this point. I had a couple like rentals that I was working on. Like things were just looking great, right? And then I lost. What I did is I had went in and I was building these websites, hosting these websites, designing these websites, like all these kind of things that they were doing. I just had this, and then they were paying me monthly fees to host their website. And that was money. But I told literally, man, I went to dinner with the dude in the company and I told him my business model. That's what I did. I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing. Because you're just asking questions. And that dude then went and backdoored me with that client and essentially stole the client. And I lost my biggest client. And I lost that client right after Britt and I found out we were going to have PAX. And it was like, dude, that was the biggest blow I can even begin to tell you, dude, because I felt like things were finally starting to take off. And I just remember Britt coming home and just being like, and I remember being like, all day, just being like, holy shit, I don't even know how to tell her. Like, I don't even know what to do. I feel like, just terrified to tell Britt. And Britt said, I tell her, she comes in, I tell her, and she's like, her response was like, oh my God, what an idiot. I think she even said, what an effing idiot. Not me, the guy who, the guy who allowed that to happen. And she's like, oh man, you'll figure it out. No big deal. And she said, you'll figure it out. That's who you are. That's what she said. And that's what I needed to hear. Like in that moment, God, my confidence was like low. I was like, it was low, man. Low. That's what I needed to hear, dude. And so then I went to work trying to figure that shit out and double down on real estate, man. And double down on real estate because real estate was true assets that nobody could take from me, dude. Like nobody's going to take this shit. Like this is, I own it, double down on real estate. Ran into Ryan at the airport, found out about multifamily, dude, rest is history from there. Right. And that's when then multifamily, that's when I made my first 7-figure year. But I wanted to circle it back to what I said in the beginning, though. This whole process through, bro, I'm acknowledging the work that I'm putting in. I'm seeing the shit that I'm doing that is different than other people are doing. Like, I will do things. I was willing to do things and not get paid for it. Like, really the first, like, big check, my first 6-figure check that I had ever got was because, dude, I drove up to Dallas and drove from Austin, and I had this conversation and like took this guy to dinner and put together these. I had no idea how to do anything that I was talking to the guy about. I was just piecing it together as we were going with the unrealistic optimism that I could, right? And I pieced it together. But I didn't just do it I did it, and then I would like, man, you're doing shit that other people won't, right? That's it. So that's how the web business started, and that's how the web business grew, and then that's how the web business ended.
That's awesome. And then one thing I was curious about, because this is just the area of my life that I'm working on right now. So I was wondering, because you don't talk about this too much, at what stage of your life did you meet Britt?
I was 20. Well, I was 23, maybe 24, 23, about to turn 24.
And
so what stage was that in this journey? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, so like where were you, like, in terms of your headspace financially, where were you, like, when you met her?
So I met Britt my first, so I just turned 23 and about to turn 24. And that was when I made my first six figures, like that year. Okay. Well, let's see. No, so that year was good. The next year was the year that I made. So 24 was the year I made my first six figures. Me and Britt are now dating very, very seriously. I proposed to her in July of that year. And actually, dude, I think that I proposed to Brittany on July 15th, dude, today. I really think that that's it. That's nuts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. I think it's July 15th because it's her parents' anniversary. I didn't know that at the time, but yeah, July 15th, man. So how many years ago was that? That was in 2009 that I proposed to her. So how many years ago was that? Was that 14 years ago? Yeah, 14 years ago. Crazy. So that's where I'm at in this stage of the journey, Kate. But you asked where my headspace was. I mean, dude, I was a shithead, man. I was partying anytime that I could party. Britt was too, but I'll tell you that things started to really take off for me. Like if you were to ask, one of your questions was I think one of the things that you had sent in is like, what would you change to do it faster or something, right? Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you when things really started to change so anyway, first off, did I answer that question first of what stage of the journey I was in when I met Britt?
Yep.
Okay. And then if you remember, so I had my first six figure year that year. And then the next year is when I get fired, and we'd moved to moved to DC, all this shit. Like I'm fired. It sucked. Okay. Now I'm trying to figure stuff out, but I still party and still doing all those things. But when things really took off for me is when I lost the web client. Like when I lost that web client, it was like, okay, I have to push. I have to change. Like I just have to change. I feel like I was drifting, and I was doing okay drifting, but if I wanted to take it to the next level, I had to change it. So I stopped taking all my mind altering substances. Like I loved it. Like, dude, I used to be a pothead. I used to just be a pothead. And so I just stopped anything like that. Like done. And I started to be obsessed with growth. So I would, read, I would invest, invest in mentorships. And then it just really decided to be like an example to other people. And when I did that, my mind became super clear. I started to learn and grow, in different ways. And that's, once again, man, that's what led to ultimately my first 7-figure year. Was a desperate need to, because of the stage we were in. We were just about to have PAX. And that desperate need led to me changing and removing the things in my life that were no longer serving to me in my life. If they were never serving in my life. But,
yeah. And then also, how do you manage it all, like between family, business, and I'm sure you have your own personal needs as well too. So how do you manage all of that?
It's a great question. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that shit out. I don't know, man. It is. Well, dude, I'll tell you, you have amazing team members, dude. You start getting amazing team members to help. But dude, it's a juggle, man. This is where Brittany, I'm so grateful for Brittany, because there are times like there's not true balance. True balance is a fallacy. Like it's just not a real thing. Like what I love about Brittany, and I'm grateful for Brittany of so many things, but one of those things is she understands that sometimes I I have to grind. Like I think back to dude starting the investment company. Dude, I would be in my office for hours on end, dude, hours on end, while she's trying to figure things out. And she's working at that point, man. And we had kids. And so, or a kid at least. And so we're trying to juggle that. But but she just supported it. She knew what we were working towards and why I needed to work towards there. Right. And some of that was past trauma from being let go, losing clients. It's like, I had to take ownership of my life. And in order for us to really do that, that takes sacrifice. And that is, I'll tell you, I believe that, well, dude, I believe there's a couple things. Okay. One is like, you'll hear me call this, say definiteness of purpose, right? And that definiteness of purpose is just like this clear, definite goals of what we want in our life, right? And getting specific on what we're willing to sacrifice to obtain it. And I'll come back to sacrifice in a second, because definiteness of purpose, those definite goals are huge. I believe the only people who really acquire wealth and then keep wealth are those who know what they want and they have a deeper reason for wanting it, right? Like for me, it's never just money at all. It's freedom, it's peace of mind, and it's knowing that, dude, I want to make sure that if and when I pass away, that, dude, my family is never wants, like they are taken care of. And that helps me stay disciplined, because discipline is awesome, dude, but it's also unreliable. So like a deep, compelling reason for doing what you're doing enhances your discipline, enhances your determination, enhances the purpose behind it. So, and I had to share that with Britt all the time, though. I had to share that with Britt all the time. I had to understand what her definite purposes were and what she wanted out of life. Because I knew number two, like sacrifice is number two that I mentioned, and you have to be willing to sacrifice. And it took a lot of sacrifice, dude. There was times, man, in the beginning of building the investment company, we didn't see each other hardly ever. We were like passing in the night, dude. She would work, sometimes she would work graveyards or whatever, and we just passed in the night, dude. I was traveling, trying to figure things out. I was working countless hours trying to figure things out. We would be juggling kids back and forth. 1 minute I'm taking care of them, 1 minute she's taking care of them. It's just like, dude, we just didn't see each other. But in the moments that we did see each other, we had to taste it. Like I had to find ways to taste it. So we'd go on little vacations, and I would try to stay at nice place. I would try to do things that I knew that she valued. We'd go on service trips, as an example, right? She loved service. We went to Ghana, and that was like that was actually a sacrifice, dude, a big sacrifice, because I knew that was something that she wanted to do. I did too, but it cost money to go there, and it cost time to go there. But I knew, dude, if she could taste it, like if she could taste something like that, then the support would be even higher, right? And so we made sure that she tasted it. And then, dude, I'm just willing to sacrifice. Like I believe that everyone wants wealth, but I also believe that very few people have it, and it's because they're not willing to sacrifice to get it, right? They're not willing to sacrifice. Like wealth requires sacrifice, dude, and that sacrifices include like time and money, like time and money. Like even today is a sacrifice. Like, dude, I'm in my office today I've been in my office all week. You know what I mean? Like I'm in my office today because I told you that I would be in my office. Why do I do it? Well, dude, I told you why I did it. That's why I get angry at you when you say that like it just so happens that you have people on these phone calls. No, bro, you put yourself in a position to have Kim and I on the phone call. You got to recognize the sacrifices that you have made that other people are not willing to make. And that is what makes you uniquely qualified to make more and do more and be more. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Sacrifice.
Thanks. And then I'll open the floor to questions. Kim, you can ask Tyler anything. Go ahead.
Hey, fire away, Kim McCall. Let's go. I'm ready.
Where's my mouse at? Okay, well, Good. This is great because Fireflies will have notes and it'll be like, see, you told me that one time.
Hey, turn off Fireflies just in case.
I do like what you said about Brittany being understanding, though. I think I know a little bit about this, journey that you're on, Thurbin. I follow you, right? And I know what books you're reading, and I know what books I've suggested. And I think that's huge, though. Like when you are in search, right? Like you do have this mission and this like mindset, and going full force. And I love your school year already. But when you're on this road, right? Like, and I think sometimes I've spoke with a lot of people now, being here and being with Tyler in this company, right? And I speak to a lot of people. And what I often see is like people want, we all want what we want, but the biggest thing in partnerships, like I see it like when we talk about teams, and that ultimately will be like your spouse, right? Like your wife will be your team, she'll be your partner, right? And trying to find someone that's understanding, that knows like, okay, he's on this journey, like you've been on this journey before you met her, right? Like, so when she comes out, like, just don't settle. My thing's like, don't settle. You make sure they're on board. Like if I'm grinding 24 hours a day and I don't hardly get to see you, bring me a sandwich, but support me.
Yeah.
Be understanding. Yeah. Not like, I thought you're going to take me in that cool car for a ride somewhere. Like what? No, that's not today. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't a Tyler question, but I love what you said about her. That was great.
No, I agree with that because it's mentally challenging, man. And it's just mentally challenging. And what's interesting is Brittany and I had to have those conversations of like, because Brittany is very like analytical about things. And so she would, when I first started like the investment side, because I had started a lot of stuff that didn't pan out. Like I just had. And so she's like nitpicking me with questions. And I finally was like, hey, like, I don't know. Because but all these questions she was asking me, I didn't know the answer to. Because I'm learning it, dude. And so I'm like, I don't know, I'm like, but every time you grill me with these questions and I don't know, it's like man, like it's a hit to my confidence, I just need to know that you trust me. Like, do you trust me? Because if you don't trust me, shit. That's the biggest problem. And I related it back to when she was going to school. I was like, man, when you were going to school, like you were gone all the time. All the time. You were like, you'd lock yourself in the room and do homework all the time. I didn't come in there and be like, do you know this? Do you know that? What about this? What about this? Do you know what you're going to do here? What job are you going to get here? How's it going to pay off 2 years later? I didn't ask you that shit. I was just like, what the fuck do you need from me? I'm here. I'll cook you breakfast. I'll cook you dinner. I'll take you to school. What do you need? I'm going to do it. That's what I did. And so I believe that painting that picture for us was big because then it was less about grilling me about things and literally just like Ken said, just like supporting. Like, how do I support the cause? How do I build you up to make sure that you are that dude who can do that, right? And that's when things took off. So, yeah, I agree. Spouse, don't settle. Don't settle. But also, the only way that somebody's going to see your value is if you see your value, bro. And I believe one of the biggest, I believe just, man, one of the biggest things that you don't see is your value, man. You got to see it. And I know you see it, but I just don't know if you give yourself credit for it. And you got to. Right? Mm-hmm. People say don't toot your own horn. Shit, man, I'm tooting my own horn as much as possible. You don't have to toot it in public. You got to toot your horn in private. I know that sounds perverted, and it does sound perverted. But shit. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I heard nothing.
I heard.
I like it. Yeah. How many of my students are authors?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Right.
I think it's great. I think yes, 100%. He does not give himself as much credit as he deserves. And whatever it is, like I was on a journey too. Like, what's wrong with me? I went through the same, like I've shared with Thurbin probably more than I've shared with you, Ty, but so we relate on some things, and I've definitely struggled with self-confidence, like a lot, like growing up, and I'm like, what is that? And so I've been like, I think last year was good. And I don't know, maybe being in Utah with no husband and kids for the most part, like I listened to a lot of books. I was doing a lot of self-discovery. And it was just interesting. Like, so I went through this own self-healing journey, I guess, if you will. Like, I don't like this about myself. And why am I like that? So I don't know. You got to figure it out though, because it will kill you.
I'll tell you, so I'll tell you something I've learned recently. Okay. Because I believe as high achievers, we're like that. As high achievers, we want big things. We're pursuing big things. And so what ends up happening is we never give ourselves credit for where we're at, dude. Have you guys ever read, there's a book called The Gap and the Gain or something like that? You guys ever read this book? It's a newer book, but it's like, dude, let me tell you. So here's the premise of it, okay? Here's why we feel that way. So here's the best way that I could describe it, right? Can you guys see that board? You can see it, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you have this, right? Let's see if we can, there we go. You have your starting point, okay? So your starting point for any of us, wherever we're going. Then we set a goal, right? Whatever this goal is that we're trying to achieve. It could be a short term, it could be a long term, whatever it is. And dude, we could start, man, and we could even hit the goal. That's what's crazy, dude. We could actually even hit the freaking goal. But the problem is we don't compare ourselves back to where we started. Instead, they call it like an ideal, right? We have this ideal that we compare ourselves to. And so the gap and the gain, this gap is how far away we are from our ideal. And the shitty thing about that is we're never going to be at the ideal. Like I compare it to like a horizon, right? Like you can go on pursuit of the horizon. You can make all this, but the horizon is the horizon. You'll never hit it. It's always in the distance. That's what the ideal is meant for. It's meant to keep you going. But we will even achieve these goals that are goals that, man, we never even thought were possible a couple of years ago or whatever it was. But instead of giving ourselves credit, by measuring ourselves from where we started, we measure ourselves against our ideal, which means there's always this gap. So when they say the gap in the game, it's where you're at. There's always this gap, and you measure yourself in this gap because you're measuring yourself against an ideal that's not even attainable. So you're never happy, you're never fulfilled, you never feel worthy, you never feel qualified because you're measuring yourself against an unmeasurable, something that's not even real. But the gain is if you were to just measure yourself and going back to, okay, this is where I started, this is what I've done, you build more confidence, because confidence doesn't come from, we think that confidence comes from achievements. It actually doesn't come from achievements. It comes from, it comes from past achievements, because like confidence comes from past achievements. But the problem is because we're always measuring ourselves against we're in the gap because we're measuring ourselves against the ideal. We don't give ourselves the confidence because we don't look at our past achievements the way that we should look at our past achievements. So confidence comes from past achievements. So we have to recognize the past achievements to remember that we're on the direction here. So literally everything in that moment, like if you're in the gain and measuring yourself with where you started, you're always in the gain, which means you have tons of confidence because you see yourself growing. The minute you're in the gap is the minute you're comparing yourself to an ideal. And I do that with myself. I do that with my kids. Like I'll find myself, getting after Pax for not doing things. And why is it? Dude, it's because I'm measuring him against, my view of what he should be doing. I'm 38 years old. He's 8 years old. So it's like my view of what he should be doing, it's an ideal where if I just looked at where he started and what progression he's making, it's like, man, I'd just be building him up all the time for all the shit that he's been doing and all the progress he's been making, and his confidence would increase and then he would continue to progress. So it's like we measure ourselves in the gap and we measure our kids in the gap. We measure our spouses in the gap. But if we can focus on the gain, their confidence grows and our confidence grows, right? That's why we feel like that, dude. It's because we stay in the gap instead of the gain.
And that's genius. Because like when you're obsessed with growth, of course, like even when you get to that next goal, you already have more goals, right? So then there's no, that explains it for sure.
Yeah,
dude, go ahead. Sorry, bro.
No, I was saying that's a great way to I never thought of it that way. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. I can't take credit for that. And that's that book, The Gap in the Game. But it's a friggin' who wrote it? It's something Hardy, I think is what it is. Darren Hardy, maybe. But you look up Gap in the Game. It's a great freaking book. But it was an eye opener to me for sure. Because it was just an eye opener to me, dude, for sure. Because like I always would say, like, man, you have to raise the bar before you hit the bar. And that is a beautiful thing. You should be raising the bar before you hit the bar, because then if you hit the bar, then it's like, well, shit, where do I go? So you have to have an idea, but you have to measure yourself against the starting point. You know, that's where I had been going wrong. Yeah.
Benjamin Hardy.
Hey, there we go, Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to hold on buying books right now because I got over 100 books I haven't read in my room. So yeah.
Add it to the list for next year.
It'll be on the wish list for sure.
Love it, dude.
See, my book made it though. Good job. Yeah. I was looking at Thurbin's list.
Hey.
Okay, I like it.
What was the book?
Kim.
That 8 Rules of Love.
Oh, nice. I haven't read that one.
Jay Shetty.
Yeah, I bought it.
Oh shit, I love Jay. I forgot that he came out with a new one. I love Jay Shetty, man. Yeah, I gotta read that one.
Yeah, but I'm
thinking about being his life coach, signing up to. I feel like it would help me in this role that I'm in. Like, yeah. So he has his own course.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, to teach you.
Yeah, I love Shetty's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sick. You should totally do that, man. Like, what does that consist of?
I can make an appointment to find out, but it's a I can't remember. It's a lot of hours. That's why I was wondering, like, what did Meg take? Like, what did you take? And then I looked at hers and I'm like, yeah, no, his is way more than what I was like, hers is, yeah. So anyways, it sounds way more intense, but I'm definitely, we'll see. Maybe when I'm doing my homeschool, I could do that. Like, so.
Yeah, there we go, dude. There we go.
I'll go back to school. So, yeah. Good. See, even Tyler likes Jay Shetty. Thurbin. So.
Oh, love. Yeah.
Good.
Love Jay Shetty. Did you read his other book? His first book?
No, the monk one. I haven't yet.
Yes.
I was told I should read it.
I've probably read it 4 times. That's one of Brittany and I love that book, dude.
No way.
For real, it's so good.
It's downloaded in my Audible. But
yeah, and it's a great listen too. Yeah, it's a great listen. We've listened to it a couple times, dude. Because I love how it's a great listen too. So.
Well, I'll bump it up. I was rereading How to Win Friends. I'm working on my own relationship course mainly for our students, because again, it's a relationship-based business, and then they just drop the ball. I'm like, look, go read this book. So Kim was like, put this together for one of the classes, and I was like, okay, I'm diving deep into it. So I'm already almost
sick,
done.
dude.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
I look forward to that, Kim, because I've interacted with a lot of students offline. And I've noticed a lot of them just kind of operate with an agenda. Not all of them, of course, but it kind of turned me off to working with them. But yeah, no, I think definitely add that to the curriculum.
Yeah, sick.
It's
neat. I love that.
I'll bring it to her and see if she approves. It's going to be one of the mini calls during the week. So
sick.
And I'm not going to put any
love it
stamp on it, not a role, not a specific, because it's across the board. So,
relationships, period. I love it, Kim. Susan, I think that's such a great idea. Just relationship, such a good idea.
It's everywhere, right? And the partnerships and the brokers and investors. So
Yep.
And I was wondering,
all right, what other questions you got, Thurbin?
Yeah, I was gonna hmm, what's something that people don't ask you that you wish they would ask you?
Something that people don't ask me that I wish that they would ask me. It's a good question, man. That's a good question. I I don't know. Honestly, I think that I don't know. I don't really know if I have one that I could say off the top of my head, but um, I'll tell you what I love to do though is like I love to do the things that we just did today, man. This is way more fun. Like I don't every mastermind, every podcast, every whatever. It's like tell me about like your background. It's like, dude, you know what I love to do? I love to come in and that's why I ask you questions like, well, what are you struggling with, dude? Let's work through it. Like I love that shit. So what would I love? I would love people to be like, hey, real talk. I'm struggling with this. Do you have any advice, any guidance on this? Right. Because I think that a lot of times people think that, I think a lot of times people think that I'd be the only person struggling with it. But I also, I just believe that I love doing that stuff though, I guess is what I'll tell you. If, I could show you an email that I wrote yesterday that is like maybe one of the longest freaking written. But it's because somebody asked me that, man, about what they were dealing with. And I was like, fuck, I know exactly what it's like to feel like that. Let me give you some guidance on this. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have one off the top of my head.
Okay, no problem.
Kim, what should people ask me that they don't ask me?
Probably if you're addicted to anything, candy in particular.
Zots, you son of a bitch.
Those are the best ever. Maybe I got lemon hands today.
Hey, I love those too, man. I love those too.
Yeah. In my big weight loss journey, I was cut off candy for so long, and so we had a movie night at the office last night, and I was like, I'm eating candy. So yeah, I don't know. I think I wish people would be more, just I'm still trying to figure out how to tell the students, right? And that's why I'm like, no, I'm going to deep dive back into this book and tear it to parts, right? And like I want people not to come. I want to teach them how to be givers, and so maybe not. I don't know. Maybe should we not ask a question at all? Maybe say something, but then maybe they don't want to say anything because they're still insecure, maybe.
I don't feel like you could train someone on that per se. I think they have to come to that realization themselves.
Train somebody on what?
Like with
givers.
With being givers.
You can train somebody on being a giver. I believe you can train somebody on being a giver, but with both, like with anything, they have to come to the realization. But you guys are both givers. How did you come to that realization?
That's a good question.
I wonder if some people are like, so we talk about skill, like what's my one favorite book, The Grit, right? And there's, what does she calls it, when people are naturally athletic, right? Or they're naturally book smart. And what if some people are just naturally giver? I've been having, like, I've heard it a few times, and I've even heard it in your podcast. You mentioned it, but people kind of get upset with don't tell me I need to add value, like tell me how to give value. And it's like, so, to your point earlier about, like, okay, this happens, I'm going to figure it out. This happens, I'm going to figure it out. So I think people need to have I wish they had enough mindset to say, I'm going to figure it out, because they don't. They just want us to tell them. And it's like, okay, well, where I came from, like when I first met you, right? We came from a different company. There was nobody there teaching me how to figure it out. I mean, how to tell you or do it. Like we just had to figure it out. So then I come here and I'm like, okay, let me teach you. So yeah, I wish people would not. I really like, don't, you don't have to ask a question. Why don't you say a comment, like a positive, uplifting comment? I think that's, I'm too into the book, because they say that, right? Like people of the stature still like compliments or appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I wish people would not always ask things.
I think,
You know, it's
for me, I think it's just a frame of mind. Part of it is kind of what I grew up seeing is kind of normal. Because like my mom has always been that way, like been a giver. And then my dad, he gives in his own way. He's kind of because like I grew up with my family, like my mother was financially irresponsible, and so my dad like took care of the household, like in terms of like finances. He never complained to us about all the things he dealt with. But I knew he always loved us, like deep down. He just probably isn't the best at articulating it. So I think for me it's just kind of like a frame of mind, and then also too just I just kind of believe this is just how I view the world. Like I'm of the mindset that if you come in contact with me, I want your life to be better. Like whether you get richer because of me or you get more exposure, or like I'm of the mindset you are going to have a better life because you know me. And I don't think I kind of struggle in life sometimes because I realize other people don't feel that way. So now I get a little, sometimes I get a little paranoid with like, because ever since like I became an author and started my school, like people just treat me different. Like I'm some like I'm not a human anymore. Like, oh, you're an author? You're what? What is with you? Like you're not like us. Like I don't know, but I see people as people, you know? We're all breathe, we all bleed. You know, that's just my approach.
When you say you get, I can't remember the word you just said. You said not apprehensive, but something like, what did you say?
Like paranoid. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So a lot of people like that know me usually only reach out to me if they need something.
Yeah. And so that's what you're paranoid about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bro, that is something that will only grow. Is it? Like, I'll tell you that I believe in an abundant mindset, right? I believe very much in an abundant mindset. But the more that you grow and the more that you build, and the more that people, want to take and take and take. And so you get, it's almost made me, and I've had to catch myself in this so many times, because it's almost made me bitter of like, God, every fucking phone call I get on, people just like they just want shit. Like everybody just wants to add to my motherfucking to-do list. It's like, God damn, I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to keep my head above water. It's like, geez almighty, man. Or people like really are trying to weasel in just to get their, do their thing. They're trying to, come in, dude, that will ruin you. That will ruin you. And I believe that there is accumulation and utilization, right? And accumulation, I believe most people are focused on acquiring things, accumulating things, right? But accumulation is a scarcity-based mindset, because they essentially believe that, like, the more that they can accumulate, the more security they have, essentially, right? So they're always asking, they cut their expenses, they do things by themselves, they invest in material things, they Try to stay out of debt, you know, so because what if they lose it all? It's like that's accumulation. They're just trying to acquire. Those are the people who are asking. Well, I believe that utilization is well, dude, utilization is the key. I just believe that utilization is the key. Like that is a more abundance and value driven mentality, right? And that type of person, what we believe that security is attained by providing value. And I know that you guys, you guys have heard me talk about value creation, and I know that you guys freaking buy into that because that's what you freaking do. And so what do you do? What do we have to do if we're going to continue to provide value? We have to always be enhancing our knowledge, looking at courses that we can take so I can be better at what I'm currently doing, right? How do I put on these masterminds, build those relationships? Like always enhancing knowledge, utilizing resources, utilizing, and investing in other people. You're just becoming more and more useful so that you can provide more and more value, right? So I believe that when we focus on the cause of money, which is creating value for others, then the effect will happen naturally, right? But at every single stage that you grow, there's going to be you have more and more value to provide. And so you have more and more people who are wanting that value. You've put yourself in a position to be valuable, and now you're bitter because people just want the value. That'll fucking ruin you. And I speak it from experience, man, because I have to check myself on it all the time because it's like, well, dude, that's what I signed up for. That's the belief that I have. That's what I want to do. And what a shitty life would it be if people thought, man, I need this, and nobody ever thought that I could help them get that. God damn, I would be miserable at that end. I'd be like, what? Shit, I got nothing to give. But now on the other end, it's like, I got stuff to give. And it's like, man, what? It's like, it's all perspective, man. It's all perspective. So.
Mm-hmm.